Hi folks, you're with Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the referendum, the recent referendum in Australia, and looking at the aftermath of that referendum. So this was a referendum, and some of you are probably already aware of it, where it was going to be an amendment or a proposed amendment to the Constitution of Australia. To enshrine a black-only parliament in the Australian Constitution. Now, that was being put to the people as a referendum, and it was, in referendum terms at least, absolutely soundly defeated. It was interesting that it was the margin was as much, like it was like 61-39 or 62-38, something like that. And all the big business, all the globalist firms, all the globalist NGOs, the globalist controlled politicians, all of these, the entire globalist cabal, the United Nations, you name it, they're all on board with this dividing Australians by race and creating social division. And it was very clearly a globalist, a globalist ploy. There's no doubt about that. But the propaganda that was going, not only were they outspending, the yes, as in vote for the parliament, black-only parliament, was outspending the vote no by something like 20-1. It was a huge differential in spending and advertising and promotion and so on. And just the amount of times I went to the the local grocery store and was accosted by and I mean propagandists, and activists. I don't mean people who were there to explain the radical propagandists and absolute liars. I mean blatant liars being put around the place to try and convince people such as me, the citizenry, that they should vote for this parliament because it was going to make everything so much better, and everything was really terrible. It was so bad. Did you know that 100 million trillion gazillion little black babies are murdered every day for evil fascist Nazis? I mean, the stuff they were coming out with was just beyond absurd. So there was a huge campaign to vote in favour of it, or to promote it, but the polls, certainly in the last couple of months before the actual referendum itself, when the minds of the voters were beginning to focus on the issue, so it seemed pretty obvious that it was going to struggle to get up, the vote for the black-only parliament. Now, so let's look at the aftermath. Now, my understanding is, and certainly based on what's happened since, is that the government, which is a very left-leaning, super pro-globalist government we've got at the moment, they had planned, they had this huge budget set aside secretly, as far as I can tell, to splurge money left, right and centre on black-only causes and issues. Not to actually make a difference to people's lives, that's very rare, but to sort of virtue signal and to pay off the activists. Now, a lot of Aboriginal, the black Australians, a lot of Aboriginal activists were getting around there, and they were, doing all sorts of activism and having all sorts of rallies and gatherings, and there was a lot of cross-pollination, if you like, in between all other activist groups, minority activist groups, whether it be lesbians or homosexuals or green groups or climate groups or whatever. They all seem to sort of coalesce into and I think they're all part of the sort of the central beltway of the renter mob type brigade. So there's that. Also the activist machinery and architecture that goes into the universities and into the public service and so on, that was all activated as well. And that architecture and those activist architecture sort of and the apparatus and the infrastructure, they're using each other's placard waivers to get crowds out on the street, to give the appearance of grassroots and so on. So there's all that. But there's a lot of these Aboriginal activists, of course, were running around and indirectly promoting or performing a service for this globalist government. They were creating social division, which still exists now, even after the vote. It's not a settled matter as far as the pro-black parliament are concerned. It's just the beginning of the struggle as they see it. And so that social division, or much of it, remains. And people who voted that they didn't want a black-only parliament, they think the matter's settled, but the other side, the globalist controlled, the globalist funded side, their mission, their job, their purpose was to create social division in Australian society. And so they have to keep going. So with the government had said, the Australian government, I think, has set aside many rewards for these activists, the ones that were doing the activist charming and creating a social division for this black-only parliament. And even though they lost the vote, the social division, as I mentioned a moment ago, kind of still remains in many ways. And the people, the activists, sort of subsequent to losing that vote, they're running around saying that all Australians are, racists and Nazis and fascists, and if not Hitler personally, and so on and so on. The usual globalist talking point stuff when they're out to create social division. But what they've done is, certainly by my reckoning, what they've done is the government has set aside a big budget for giving cosy, well-paid, prestigious-sounding jobs to these activists. And so, we will reward you for creating the social division that we wanted, and we will reward you for running around calling white Australians Nazis. That sort of stuff is really good for the globalist cause, and we're going to reward you by giving you a job as executive director of operations for on a good salary. Now, just in line with that, or just I refer to one of the largest, I won't name it, but I refer to one of the largest job boards, employment job boards in Australia online. And so these are black-only employment gigs. Okay, you have to be, or claim you identify as black, but they're black-only gigs. They're not available to white people, which is supposedly in contravention of Australian employment law and contravention of human rights law. All sorts of laws are being broken by this, but there is not, as far as I'm aware, there is not one lawsuit pursuing these people or these organisations. Not one. If the reverse were the case and it was white-only employment, it would be international fucking headlines, screaming headlines. Nazis take over. But when it's black-only employment, no whites allowed. No, that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. We're allowed to break the law because we're pursuing social justice, so we're allowed to. And anyway, all these white people are all fucking Hitler anyhow, so they don't deserve legal rights. Fuck them. So now let's look at these are the best paid jobs in Australia. Okay, so this is the top of the tree. Now the 25, this is CEO level type jobs. Of the top 25 best paid CEO jobs in the whole of the country, in the whole of Australia, how many would you say are for black-only employment, Aboriginal-only employment? Now, bear in mind that the average, full-blood average is less than 1% of the population. And then if you go down to sort of 1/8, 1/16, and that sort of thing, 1/32, and you would have no idea that those people are Aboriginal, then about 3% claim to have some sort of Aboriginal heritage. Again, the sort of the one drop of blood type test. Now, I've known people who were quite a few people actually, who were a quarter Aboriginal, and you just wouldn't know it. I mean, maybe a little bit swarthy or something, but nothing that would give it away. Nothing that would make it obvious. By the time they get to an 8th, you'd never pick it. But these are people who are claiming to be Aboriginal, and this is what makes up the 3% of the population. So now the top 25 best paid CEO level jobs, and it's in the whole of Australia, all government, all private sector, all NGO, the whole lot. This is the total in Australia. 11 of the top 25 jobs. 11 of the top 25 jobs are being reserved exclusively for Aboriginal Australians and their executive level jobs. Now, as far as I can tell, they're do-nothing jobs. They're simply rewards for people who are performed a service for the globalists, really. You've created social division. Well done. That's what we wanted you to do. And so we're going to give you a reward now with a well-paid, prestigious job. So they're advertising these jobs. Now, the person will already been picked, already selected. They're just out there saying, look what we're doing for you. So it's a huge virtue signaling bit of bullshit from top to bottom. These jobs don't exist. The activists who are going to be and have been given these jobs. Now, this has been an ongoing thing since this the so-called The Voice referendum, as it's called, to have a black-only parliament. This has been a thing since then. There's been an absolute explosion of patronage jobs, all taxpayer funded, by the way, all public service, NGO, Quango type gigs, all funded by the fucking taxpayer. Some by some of the big multinational firms who are all part of the globalist cabal anyway. But I just wanted to sort of mention, to show this. This is all my opinion, of course, but this is this is what's going on. That your taxpayer money has become a toy, a plaything for globalist cabal flunkies and stooges to spray around in all directions to reward their hate-filled buddies who were doing the globalist bidding. I mean, for goodness sakes, you've been a Tacitus today. You're a pushback channel, and thank you for listening.